Hey girls, and welcome to another episode of the Hey Girl podcast. It's Bethany here with my girl Jenn.
Hey girls.
And I'm pumped for this episode because we have my bestie, Shauna Stevens. I saved you from yelling her name.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. And she's here, and Jenn is going to interview her because, let's be real, it's almost impossible to interview your best friend and not pee your pants laughing.
Exactly. And too, I feel like it's super nice because she's your friend. And so because she's your friend, I automatically love her. Like, it's like, check the box. We're already friends because she's your friend.
Oh, I love that.
But I don't get to know all the things, the background stories that you know. So this is an awesome opportunity for me to get to know her even better. So it's a win-win for both of us, I feel.
It's true. You ask better questions because I take for granted the things I know the answers to. So, no, that makes sense. So, Shauna and I have been friends for 16 years. We're actually like 18 years old, so we were very, very young. But the story of us meeting, and she didn't mention it, which kind of surprises me because usually she likes to throw me under the bus. And since she didn't take advantage of the opportunity, I thought I would take advantage.
You run with this, girl.
Yeah.
Let's hear it.
So we went to Bible school together. That's where we met. But we didn't actually become friends right away. Oh. And the reason being that when we were in Bible school, Shauna had a weirdo group of friends. And I mean, like, those people you picture wearing dark colors and thinking nothing but dark, somber thoughts. And all they know how to do is snap their fingers when something good happens.
So wait, hold up. So did she bring you into this darkness?
No, that's why I wasn't her friend. I was like, ain't nobody got time for that kind of negativity. But okay, so she would say this, so I just have to own it. During my Bible school years, first of all, I was 17. So let's all not get too judgmental.
Okay. Yep, okay.
Remember yourself at 17, okay? I was maybe the opposite extreme. If there was a pendulum, Shauna's friends were like on the deep, dark Hades side. And I was over on the I wore rainbow sweaters before rainbows meant other things. And was just really kind of over the top.
So you were like sunshine, happiness.
I was like Pippi Longstockings on drugs.
Pollyanna.
Oh, craziness.
Okay. I'm getting a picture. Yep.
So you can imagine why our worlds did not come together right away. Because I needed to kind of come down off the caffeine a little bit. And Shauna needed to meet Jesus. I'm just kidding. She knew him. No, she kind of just needed to separate herself from the dark side.
Okay.
And so we had mutual friends, and that's kind of how we did spend time together. But our friendship really began, I would say, the summer after our freshman year. And Shauna was a phenomenal singer. That was something that I knew of her and knew that she loved to lead worship, which she will talk about. And I was like, girl, you need to come to my summer camp and sing with my boyfriend, Andy Needham from the Andy Needham Band. Seriously. Okay, there was no Andy Needham Band at the time, but he was still him. And I was like, you need to come lead worship for this summer. It'll be awesome. I don't know why I invited her. Maybe I was trying to save her. Maybe I was like, come with me. I'll introduce you to happiness. And she agreed. And she came with me to camp. And we got crazy tight that first summer. I think probably because I got put in this ridiculous leadership position I was probably way underqualified for, which was to lead the female staff. And I was one of the youngest female staff.
Oh, okay.
And Shauna was the one female staff that stood by me through thick and thin and tears and counselors who didn't want to listen to me having to tell them what to do because they were older than me and they thought it was ridiculous. And Shauna just always had my back. So that is something, if I'm going to tell you anything to know about Shauna, is she is that friend you always want on your side because she will have your back. And in days when I was face to face with counselors like super angry at me or like not listening, Shauna was not fazed. She's like, no, you need to listen. Like, this is her job and I don't care how you feel. Like, she just was very like firm. She should have had the job. Now that I'm talking, she should have been the one And I should have been able to be liked by people, which is way more my jam. So that's how our friendship began.
All right.
And we have, like, you have your Anna. I always say Anna is to you what Shauna is to me. The inside jokes, the peeing the pants laughing, the everything. The me yelling at boys who break her heart or sending them emails that may be slightly inappropriate.
All right. Well, let's just hope that I do justice to her and to you by interviewing her well today. So, listeners, we hope you enjoy this interview today. Grab a cup of coffee and
tissues.
Settle in and
don't grab chocolate though, because she's allergic to dairy.
Oh, good to know. Hi, Shauna. Welcome to the Hey Girl podcast. I'm so excited to be interviewing you today because you are Bethany's bestie. So say hello to our listeners.
Hey, listeners. Hey, girls.
Good job. Shauna pretends to be normal, but she's a little wild and crazy. So we're going to try and bring that out in her. But so first off, start at the beginning. Tell me about yourself. Tell me where you grew up. Start there.
Yeah, I grew up in a small eastern town in Maine. Like, literally, my driveway was a quarter mile from the river that separates Canada and America. So Canada is no big deal to me. That's where I grew up.
You just blew my mind already. Okay. Oh, my word. Okay. Keep going.
And grew up, my parents are believers. I do have an older brother, 6 years older than me. He's not a believer. We're not very close. My sister is 3 years older than me, and she was born with cerebral palsy really severely. She's nonverbal, and she can't walk. Bethany and I met 2001 and at New Brunswick Bible Institute, which is where I did 4 years of school. She did 1. Something about getting married. Okay. Yeehaw. Blah, blah.
Okay, so what brought you to Bible school?
I couldn't get into a regular school.
All right.
No, so my first year at a high school, I was going to go to Word of Life, Screw Lake, and I just didn't have the money for it, so I stayed home, worked. And then the next year was again scheduled to go to Word of Life, and I just can't describe it. There was like this crazy fear I had. And this couple at camp had just went to NBBI, and they were like, do you want to just come see it? Like, maybe just kind of get more comfortable just seeing a place. And as soon as I stepped on the property, I was like, this is where I'm supposed to be.
That's awesome.
Filled it out, and like 2 weeks later was accepted, and like 3 weeks later was there.
Wow. So that happened really quick.
Really
that's
quick.
Awesome. Okay. So one of the things that you and I have already talked about, that some things we want to cover, is there was some bullying in your life. But I don't think that that's something that you're not the only one who's been through that. And so I just want to say first, thank you for being willing to talk about it, because I think a lot of women and girls can relate to that. So start at the beginning for that. When did it start?
I remember, it's interesting to kind of look at the lines of what is teasing versus what is bullying. So I feel like those kind of interweave. But I remember kindergarten, 4 years old, and now this is probably where it's more of teasing, but I remember this.
Okay.
Is I was so excited. My parents had bought me these like big blue fuzzy monster slippers, and I was like so excited to get to school and to wear them walking around the classroom. And instead, I got like really made fun of for them.
In kindergarten.
By second and third grade, I remember, because it was the first time I had ever had white chocolate, which just sounds really weird. But I remember these two girls, like this girl had, I'm not going to say names, but this girl had this white chocolate, and I must have asked for a piece or something because I had never had it. And she's like, we're not your friend today. We might be your friend tomorrow, but we're not going to be your friend today. And they turned around and walked away. And that was second and third grade.
Wow.
That kind of continued. By fifth grade, there were a couple of girls that lived like on my street or like across.
Okay.
They were a year ahead of me. And they had put, I don't know how I saw it, like who presented it to me, But I remember being at school in my classroom and I saw this clipboard and it said, if you hate Shauna Stevens, sign your name here. And like the entire 5th through 8th grade school had written their names on it. And it wasn't, so I grew up in a small town, but my middle school was still several hundred children. Okay. And that year was really bad. I remember I had the word suicide had entered my head. Mm-hmm. And
in 5th grade.
Yes.
Like you knew.
I knew what it was. Yeah. I remember I held a knife a couple times. I can also honestly say I would not have done it. Mm-hmm. Like it was really, but that would have been too scary. But the thought,
you were just overwhelmed as 10 years old. You were just like, this is awful. And I would consider ending my life.
Yeah. So I actually did a speech on this my first year of Bible school. Everybody has to take a speech class. And for whatever reason, I remember I did it on being bullied as a kid. And I called my mom, was just like, okay, so these are some of the stories I remember. Do you remember anything? And she was just able to like give these stories, like 5th, 6th grade, this girl, I don't remember this to this day, but she would close the bathroom door if I was in there and just start kicking me, like just start kicking my shins. I remember 6th grade, I'd made the cheerleading squad. It was like, I love cheerleading. I love gymnastics. And I made it over a popular girl. And I remember outside during recess time, the girls on the squad, because I made it over this other girl, basically got me into a corner and just threw reasons why I didn't deserve to be like, I'm not as cool, I'm sure I'm not as pretty. I don't remember the specifics, but I'm sure it was things like that. And that day I went home and quit. I called my coach. And I remember her asking, did something happen? You know, but I was just too scared. And, you know, I didn't want to be miserable every day, you know, from then on in cheerleading. I remember my mom crawling into bed several times with me, obviously, like as a child, and just praying just for one good friend, just one good friend that could stick by me and support me. And in 7th grade, that actually began to change.
Okay.
And these girls, because at that point, nearby towns came to our school because we were the biggest one. And so I began to have some friendships. But I remember, this is another crazy turning point too, or just tragedy, really. So this is a girls' podcast, right? So I can mention things. So my summer going into my 8th grade year, I started my period.
Okay.
And I started the day before my last year at junior high camp. And so obviously I'm devastated, and you're 13, 12, 13, you're terrified.
Oh yeah.
And I grew up just terrified of that. But I still went to camp because I wanted to go. So my mom bought a lot of pads, extra underwear. These 2 girls, one of whom was the stepdaughter of a person that was like a mom to me, but she hated me for whatever reason. They made my life miserable that week. They went through my belongings. They tore apart like unopened packages of mine. They went through my food. I didn't trust any food I left open because like drinks, they had backwashed in it, and I knew it. I forget how I found out, but I knew that they had. And then because I wore pads, when we had like every afternoon, there was like a large group game because the camp was probably 50 to 70 kids. So you could kind of get like big activities going. And I remember these 2 girls would always find me and pants me during these big games because they wanted to not just, but they were making fun of me because I was wearing pads. Yeah. I remember, so the Friday night of those camps was a banquet night. So you had all the girls dressed up, all the guys dressed up. And I had, do you remember the store Fashion Buck? Had like a black, skinny strap dress that went to like my ankles. And I had it hanging up all week. And I came in, I think it was like Friday afternoon, and someone had like just streaked white deodorant just down my entire dress. And I remember my counselor, that night I spent in another cabin because I just couldn't take it emotionally. And my counselor was really upset. And it's interesting now being an adult and having been on adult staff at a camp. If I had found that out, I would have kicked those kids out in a heartbeat. Like, you're literally destroying property.
Right.
And emotionally harming other kids. Like,
so I wish you could see my face, because every time you're saying these things, it's just like ridiculously awful to me. Like, I can't imagine one of those things happening, let alone all of them. Were they the same girls? Like, the girls at this camp, were they the same girls at your school?
No. I mean, the one girl from that summer at camp was someone I went to school with. Again, she was actually the stepdaughter of a woman that I called mom, like a second mom. I don't think I ever told her. I think it was years later. And I kind of said, do you know that so-and-so, like, made... My mom, I remember in a conversation once, actually said, I wish we had done more to protect you. And now it is a different society. Like, there are, like, anti-bullying laws.
Absolutely.
And I wish I had shared more. Like, my parents knew of some things. But even it's really interesting. Another random story is this kid in 7th grade, actually, he would punch me like every day in the arm. And I remember when my mom told my dad that, I was brushing my teeth, and my dad, so typical of our culture, and he's like, oh, he probably just has a crush on her. And I remember ducking out the door, and even my mom was like, no, George, like, he is bullying her. And so it's kind of hard to look back and to want and to wish that people had stepped up. But a part of it was I was also terrified.
Right.
You know, and the few times I did, nothing happened.
Nothing happened?
Or, like, you know, when people, like, I remember one day discovering, like, horrible language on one of my lockers. And I told a teacher, but obviously they couldn't narrow it down.
So there was no one they could pinpoint and punish.
So it was, I mean, I did have, yeah, it's kind of, it's hard. Like, it's hard. And I do think teachers are much more aware of bullying. I know I am. And I work at a school.
Right,
so, yeah, like, I will light up a child if I actually heard a kindergarten kid tell another kid one time, I'm not going to be your friend today. And I lit into them because I was just like, no, like, to me, it's just better to not talk to someone. If you don't like them, don't talk to them.
Well, I think of your parents, and I think of their generation, and just that like being tough and taking what people did to you as normal. Like, if a boy punched you, yeah, that was acceptable, and you just found a reason why it was acceptable. Like, oh, he likes you, that must be why he's punching you. And then I feel like our generation is more like people got vindictive and just did nasty, nasty things to people. Why do you think you didn't, like, talk to people more? Like, you were scared because of what was going to happen to those kids, or because they were going to do more to you? What were you, like, what was going on in your mind? I mean, obviously you were thinking, like, my life as it is not good. You held a knife, but what were the other things going through your head?
Good question. I think probably you begin to believe, like, I began to believe I wasn't as pretty or I wasn't as good. You know, my parents, they did what they could. Like, I don't misunderstand me. My parents were extremely hard workers, you know, worked all the time. And I think they just also felt helpless. But I also feel like there was kind of the sense of, well, we will probably ask for help and nothing will happen. And so because of that, you don't do anything. Same thing for me. Like, I didn't say anything half the time because I was like, probably nothing will happen. And so that with not being talked about, you know,
that, like, takes the wind out of my sails to hear that. Oh, well, as I sit across the table from you and I see you as this, like, beautiful, confident, fun woman, how did you come from being bullied to who you are today? Like, how did that shape who you are now, sitting across the table? Like, I don't look at you as someone who, like, just feels downtrodden and, like, wears that as just, like, a wound on you. Like, how did it shape you, and how did you heal from that?
God heard my prayers. And I did gain some friendships. They weren't believers to this day. I don't still think they are, but that doesn't mean there wasn't grace in that. I also feel like there just kind of came this point where especially and I didn't say this, is a lot of the people that bullied me, that called me Shamu, or like called me Bible thumper, literally same kid sitting in my Sunday school class. So there kind of just came this point, I remember by high school, just not caring. And it doesn't mean that it, like, little things didn't sting every now and then, but it kind of, when I was 14, I went to this camp in northern Maine that I rededicated my life at. So it would be 20 years ago this summer. Wow. And I began to gain incredible friendships and just knowing and loving the Lord. And there kind of just comes this, I didn't care about my school friends or my school life anymore. Like, I just like lived for camp and I lived for learning and like those friendships. And so I kind of just became more aware that there's a bigger world, even though it was an hour away, but that there's a bigger world and there are good people. And I think that really began to set the course. And I remember by my senior year of high school, I was asked to be on an incoming freshman panel that people could ask questions to.
At your high school?
Yeah, and that was actually one of the questions was, how do you do it now? And I just was like, you just kind of realize it's bigger. There's a lot bigger world than in your 6 hours. And not trying to limit extracurricular activities or how you're treated in that, but just kind of digging into what you know and who you know and what you love. And
I love that picture of redemption, that this camp and God just like brought to you this whole bigger picture in this bigger world, because you could have stayed so entrapped in that bullying in your school and thinking this is my small life. But just that God like brought redemption through a camp in northern Maine. And if I could be wrong, but I think that you're still connected to that camp today.
Yeah, actually, since working in, I've spent 12 summers there. All my college years was every other summer. I just had a night a couple weeks ago to talk about this worship school I'm in, and my camp director and his wife drove 6 hours to come be at that, and very much so, very much a part of my life and my heart.
That's awesome. I love that you still go back there. And now you're not a camper, you're a counselor, and you're helping girls.
So I don't counsel.
What do you do there?
I was like, wow, 13. So all in all with other camps, 13 summers of counseling. Wow. And I'm like, yeah, no. But I was on adult staff there. Camps are just really important to me.
That's awesome.
You're right.
I love that.
Redemption. It's all there.
Okay, so tell me about the season you're in right now. Tell me about your life.
Right now, I work with children with autism in a public K first grade classroom. It's called a sub-separate, and I love it. I'm one of the worship leaders at my church. I believe sometimes God allows us to know reasons why we were created, and those two things both have a huge part in my life. And I also fall through spring took up co-leading a high school discipleship Bible study, just because I totally believe in mentorship and or at least having people, to look up to. Absolutely. And to pour into. And I am just finished my first 6 months of an 18-month journey with 10,000 Fathers Worship School.
All right, tell me about that, because I don't know a whole lot about this worship school. You went there for a little while? So you went down there?
Yeah, part of the program when you're accepted is it's 18 months divided up into 6 months. So you have 3 tracks. And at the beginning, you fly down to Atlanta. You stay in their houses, and you eat around their tables. And it's 5 days of just intensity.
Wow.
The first 6 months is a character development, and it has kicked my butt and changed my life. Never thought I was so prideful. But I've just learned, like, for me, one of the big theme is freedom. And I've just been able to begin walking in freedom that I never knew was possible, because I've known the Lord since I was 3. And I remember a teacher, totally going off course here, but a teacher said in that track, he said, many Christians know how to walk forgiven, but they don't know how to walk in freedom.
Oh, that is a word.
And yeah. I was just like, oh, da-da-da. Like, it was powerful, but I really sensed God being like, almost like his hand on me being like, I have a freedom for you. And I was like, but, you know, because I had walked away from the Lord as an adult when I was 28, and I was like, I know how to walk in freedom. And God's like, oh, beloved child, I have a freedom for you. And so it's intense. It's discipleship. They speak into dark areas and you work on that. I'm exhausted of all the breakthroughs, but it's also been incredible. The next part is they work on your competency. So obviously always building character, and because really the basis of the program is to take song leaders and make them shepherds.
Oh, wow.
Because that's what
the goal
it's about.
At the end.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's nice to have a nice song leader who can sing pretty or play well, but if your heart isn't for God's people, then you shouldn't be up there, theoretically.
Absolutely.
And practically. So, and then we'll begin working more on, like, I'll be working on my vocals, and I'm learning how to play piano, which is crazy because I don't know how to. So it's interesting.
You're learning that.
I've done one lesson.
Okay. But, do they take a lot of people? It feels like, because it's so intimate, it feels like they don't take a lot of students.
Yeah, they do only two, maybe three tracks a year of new students. Okay. And then, like, my track was pretty big, I've been told. We had 18 of us.
Oh, wow.
But not, as far as I know, not everybody's going back. And part of that is just, I'm sure, life, like either finances, because it is a school and it does cost.
All right, switching gears a little bit. Season of life you're in. You're not married.
Oh, yeah. No.
You want to talk about that a little?
Sure. Yeah. So 34 and single. Interesting. And it's actually interesting now that we're doing this interview because I'm in what I call a hard place. So there are definitely seasons, months, weeks, days, years where you're like, I love being single and I can do what I want. I can move where I want. I can do whatever. I'm sure if I wanted to date, I could, well, I do, but date whoever I want within theory. But for me, the hardest times in being single are when financial issues come up. And so I'm in one right now. Like, I have about 3 weeks to decide to either release my car or take out a loan, which you don't need to know that, honestly. But so what happens is it's this crazy cycle of, because I work at a public school, I'm a para, so I don't make a lot of money. Right. God just has kind of always been like, you need to trust me in this area. But anyway, so what happens is I get really anxious and I need help or want help figuring things out. And so what you kind of view is you watch married couples be able to sit down and figure that out. And is financial issues a huge burden and can cause dissension? Absolutely. But is it also probably really nice to sit down and be like, all right, hun, what are we going to do? Like, what do you see? And so, yes, I have people in my life. Bethany and Andy are one. Andy's gone with me multiple times to car places or help me kind of figure out financial stuff, but it's still different. Yeah. So what happens is there's an anxiety and then it becomes, oh, I wish I had someone. And then it becomes, why? Why don't I have someone? Is it because I'm not pretty enough? Is it because I have too many food allergies now? Like, I'm too much? Or is it, I'm too spiritual or not spiritual enough? And it just becomes this crazy cycle. Yeah. There's definitely seasons of joy and seasons of pushing through and still trying to be joyful.
What would you say to someone who is single right now? What advice would you have for them? Like, what has helped you?
What has helped me? This, I would say, actually would go to both marrieds and singles, but it's to remember you were born for more than a marital relationship.
Absolutely.
And I see that a lot in my married friends and, especially moms. It's just, did God obviously have that in store for you and plan for you? Absolutely. But He created you for himself, first and foremost, and to be a daughter of his and to grow in his love and to do his work. And obviously, there's seasons in married life or parental life where so much of your energy, rightly so, is focused on your family and kids. But especially I see it in the world of like Pinterest.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm just like, oh, you're just like, there's so much more to put effort into. For singles, honestly, it sounds almost counterintuitive and out of the blue. I have this huge passion, particularly for women, when they are being broken up with, like when a guy breaks up with them, is to not go and ask the question, why?
Oh, because you want to know.
You want to know. And I don't know how or why I learned this kind of early on in my single life. But it breaks my heart when I have girls come to me, or women that are just like, oh, he broke up with me. I just don't understand. It was just so out of the blue. And I'm just like, but don't ask why. And they're like, but I just really want to know. I'm like, it's not going to help you, because you're either going to be in a relationship with someone who doesn't want to be with you, or you're going to change. Ooh. And that, I think, brings another point. And Matt Chandler, go YouTube Matt Chandler and Singleness. He says this really powerful word, and I'm in this season right now where he says to women to stop dumbing themselves down. And he's like, I see it so often. He's like, here's how it goes. Single woman, on fire, loves the Lord, knows scripture, super strong, single, really wants to be married, and men are intimidated by her. So she dumbs herself down, doesn't talk about the Lord, doesn't XYZ, finds a guy who's willing to ask her out. They begin to date. They get married, wake up 2 years into marriage, and realizes she married a really stupid man. And she is stuck there.
Yeah.
Because she loves the Lord. She knows she's to be in that relationship, and she's to serve this man and to love him. And he's like, stop dumbing yourself down. Yeah. He's like, it's literally better to be single and have 100 cats than to change who you are, to dumb yourself down. And that's something I battle. Part of it is I did Bible school. I love learning. I'm 5'8", so I put any amount of heel on, I'm instantly like 5'10", 5'11". I lift weights. I am not a petite, small woman, and I'm introverted and quiet. So I'm not that girl who goes out with a bunch of girlfriends and is the life of the party. Not usually. I'm kind of the quieter one. I've had several men, not all believers, but be like, I would have never dated you because you would have intimidated me.
Dude, get out then. And you ain't worth my time. Oh, Shauna, I got your back, girl. Oh, I'm all mad at them right now. Sorry.
So it's a really hard, it was a lot of years, and there have been 2 men, I would say, that I thought I was going to marry, like in the last 5 years. And the first guy obliterated my heart, and even my bestie thought I was probably going to marry him. And that shows you something. And I mean, I would have been 29 or 30 at the time. And unfortunately, what I did is I took, honestly, like that grief, and I let it become so much about me. Yeah. And I dwelled on it to the point that I almost ruined a friendship of 12 years at the time, and other friendships. I'm sure I was a really depressing person to be around. And then, but you countered that with this other guy that came along, who was always we knew each other from college, and he was my, what if?
Oh.
What if?
Okay.
And then about 9 years later, the what if happened. And I was so excited.
Bethany is sitting here shaking her head no. Like.
And when he broke my heart twice, because I was that person,
twice?
I kind of gave him a second chance. But here's the difference, is I was like, okay, your loss. And every once in a while I'd be like, oh. But I notice the patterns when I'm lonely. Then I'm like, could I write him? And then it's like, no, like I've learned that. But the difference is really, and this is where I had girlfriends being like, you should write him and ask like why, like what happened. And I'm like, no.
Yeah. Bethany's still shaking her head no.
There's just no. Honestly, ladies, if you're single, it is not a Christian book, but the book He's Just Not That Into You is really, it's just truth. Obviously not the chapter about if he's not into you, if he's not sleeping with you. Again.
Okay. Dismiss that chapter.
Yeah, dismiss it. Don't even bother reading it. But there is a level of it's the same thing with us. Like if I know pretty right away if it's a guy, I know pretty quickly if it's somebody I could support, serve, want to encourage for the rest of my life, want to deal with some of their habits. And if I just find I'm like, I'm not into you, I'm going to break up with you. And like, that's okay. Like it is okay to not even completely know, especially as a believer, especially as women. I think we are given an extra dose of discernment and gut feeling. And I think a lot of times that's from God, and just, it's okay.
Yeah. I know Lindsay Nobles, she's one of the co-creators of the If Gathering. She is 40, single, and she wrote a blog post recently about the church and singleness and how the church dismisses or forgets singles. So I'm just curious. So tell me, what can the church do better about singleness and acknowledging people who are single?
This is a really blunt statement, and it's really not completely true. There's so much in regards to what you learn as a parent in your relationship with God, but there's a lot of us that aren't in that stage of life. Right. But there's actually a guy too. His name is Brian. You know what? I forget his name. I want to say Brian Zimmel something. He works at Moody, so you can Google him. He wrote a few blogs called The Most Eligible Christian Bachelor, and he does a phenomenal job of explaining that same thing. I haven't read the post that you're talking about. I'm going to take it from church and just say couples or people in general is to... I'm actually really glad you asked this, because this is something I wanted to share.
I'm an amazing interviewer.
Is stop really, for the most part, stop telling singles that if you have the desire of marriage, it's from God and he's going to give it to you. It is not biblical whatsoever. I believe if you look around the world, I believe marriage and that kind of intimate relationship is human. It's a human desire. It's something God created. Yes. But it is not biblical that he's given you that desire as like a spiritual thing, or that he's going to fulfill it. Like if you read scripture, how often do people desire things? Even looking at Hebrews 11, like the Hall of Faith, all of these died longing to see the promise, and they didn't. And I know that's a far thing, but the year that really changed for me was in 2004, and I worked with kids, teens, and adults with disabilities. And I'm talking about working with quadriplegics whoever, like, are some married? Johnny Erickson Tata is one, absolutely. But I would say the majority of them will not be married. It's a lot to consider. But they have the same desires. Right. And so to look, it feel like, would you say that to them? Because, so it's kind of like this. I really struggled with that for a while and really just sensed God being like, what if I allow you to have this desire only because it makes you come to me more? I'm not saying that's easy. I'm not saying that's a super cheerful thought. But if he allows for a desire to continue and I don't see it fulfilled, there's a reason for that. And he is still good. And I still will cry every once in a while. But I have to want God more. And if that desire going unfulfilled help, I just pray the insecurity fades a little bit as the years go on. But
okay, Shauna, thank you for just sharing on that and just being vulnerable in that. I really appreciate that. I'm going to come to our last question now, which is probably my favorite question because it just lightens the air a little in the room, because we've talked about some hard things today. And so now I just want to ask, what's the most superficial thing about you?
So much.
Spill it.
I buy professional salon hair products like shampoo and conditioner as I tweak my bangs over right now. I blame it on my mom. Okay. But that's kind of what I grew up with. And I have
no suave
crazy,
in
awesome,
your shower.
But crazy. Pardon?
So no suave in your shower.
There is not.
Okay.
My hair just really loves Biolage. Like loves.
Ooh. Okay.
Loves Biolage.
What else?
Makeup.
Okay.
Now,
do you have a favorite brand?
No,
Or
just
all of
makeup
it?
and
Okay,
makeup
all
in
of
general. Which kind of stems from just so you know, listener, I'm not like one of those contour people that uses the crazy brushes, and that's not me. But I have adult acne that can get painful. So it's just an area that I feel much more confident in.
Do you use a shower cap?
If maybe.
How come?
Because I don't want my hair to I don't do my hair every day.
Oh, how often do you wash your hair?
I don't like anyone that's in this room right now. Even if I have known you for 16 years, about 2 to 3 times a week.
Oh, girl, I only wash this once a week. We're totally good.
Yeah, dry shampoo. Really glad. Like whoever kind of invented that, I'd actually really love to meet them.
Ooh, okay.
That's. But I had really long hair. I had really long black hair for years, and then one day decided to angle bob my hair. Loved it, but then that wasn't enough, and I totally did that radical undercut. So, and then I decided once that grew out, what fun is that? And so I cut half my hair so it's short on one side, long on the other. Can't be bothered.
It looks
Once
awesome.
I style my
it.
hair, I'm not gonna wash it every day.
You also have a very nice healthy glow. How do you maintain that?
Okay, so here's the thing. Is everybody else on this show sharing multiple ways that
my BFF Anna shared some pretty crazy superficial things. So
yeah, so I do fake and bake.
Okay.
Which technically stems from how I defend myself. Is the acne issue? It's real, and I do have seasonal depression, so
it makes you feel better.
I claim light therapy.
Hey,
on that one.
That's fine. I'm fine with that. I'm fine. That's good. Bethany has a series of things that I should ask you about.
This is so not
fair. I'm going to go one more, and then I'm going to give you a break, okay?
Okay.
Do you enjoy bracelets?
Yes.
Oh, like 1 or 2, or?
I maybe have 6 now.
Okay.
Which is still not even like the total fashion amongst women my age. And it's like the 15,
right.
Alex and Nani bracelets, and which, by the way, I only have 1 of those. Okay. The rest are Macy's. So let's just...
You're off the hook on
I'm cost effective.
Yeah. Okay. Good girl. I'm proud of you.
Thanks.
Shauna, thank you so much for being on the show today. I really appreciate it, and I think our listeners will relate to you on a bunch of different levels. So thank you for being honest and vulnerable and just sharing like the redemption that God has done in your life. I know that it just blesses my heart to hear your story and the way that God has worked in your life, and I know it will bless other people too.
Well, thanks for having me.
Hey girls, we hope you enjoyed that interview with Shauna. I had such a good time interviewing her, and I feel like I learned so much about her life and the things that she's gone through, and just the ways that God has redeemed her story, and just how she's now helping other girls at the camp, and also just using her gifts like with the worship school. I just love it. But here's the real truth. Bethany, how did I do?
I thought you did phenomenal. And
thank you.
It was so fun to watch you interview her because you brought so many things out in her story that I could have easily missed because, again, you just like, oh, I know that. Everybody knows that. Mm-hmm. And it was really, I don't know, it was great as her friend to listen and be reminded of some of the puzzle pieces from her past and now being part of this season of her life. Even just how well she works with kids with autism and special needs, and being reminded today of how far back to her sister and having that from, since the day she was born, and how God has taken that and used that in her life. And she's phenomenal with kids with special needs, like crazy gifted. And I love that. The worship leading side of that, I've honestly had the pleasure of watching that progress for her and seeing her really embrace that call in her life. And anyone who has ever seen or heard her lead worship would affirm that gifting in her. So I think you did great. And it was really fun to watch you guys.
Oh, super fun. I also just want to say, like, I love our guests so much because, one, they're willing to be vulnerable and transparent. And I just want to say, too, we're going to put Shauna's info in our show notes because, not because we're like, oh, let's be popular, but because Shauna has walked some hard roads and she's also willing to be transparent. So if you've walked some of those hard roads and you just want to ask her a question or just connect with her, we invite you to, because she is just a fabulous lady and she's one of those people who's willing to help someone else who's walked those roads. So,
are we putting her digits on there?
I mean, any single men who love the Lord,
you best be strong.
So, we thank you for listening. As always, we love doing this podcast, and we invite you to connect with us on all our social media platforms: Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Connect with us, like us on iTunes, give us a review so other people can find us too. Have a great day.
I just gave you the music. Andy, now you don't even have to add it in.
Alright, you can take your seat because I'm going to sit there and listen to what you say.
Hey girls, I am so excited to be sitting down with Shauna today. I know, but I wanted it. Can I say it then?
I'm sorry.
I can't say it.
What?
Oh, I didn't want to be like, hey girls, it's Andy. 1,000 apologies.
This is so not fair.
Like, girlfriend, if you unblock that boy, I will murder you over FaceTime. I don't even know how that's possible, but I will find a way.
And we invite you to connect with us on all our social media platforms. Twitter, platform. Yes, Twitter, platform. Andy fixed that. Twitter, Facebook.
Twitter is a platform.
Twitter,